for 6 fractional coefficients. So we are solving equations here that involve fractions, and some of these variables are going to be raised to powers. When we do this, the whole idea is to get rid of those fractions. So if we look at example A, we have x squared over 2 is equal to 2x over 15 plus 1 over 10. So our whole idea is to find the least common denominator. So our least common denominator for this one is going to be 30. So we're going to multiply the entire thing by 30. So we're going to have 30 over 1 times x squared over 2, is equal to 30 over 1 times 2x over 15 plus 30 over 1 times 1 over 10. So we can simplify before we multiply these. The 2 is going to turn into a 1. The 30 would be a 15. So this is going to be 15x squared is equal to, this 15 is going to turn into a 1, making the 30 a 2. So 2 times 2x is 4x. And then the 10 turns into a 1, making the 30 a 3. So that's plus 3. So from here, we solve for x. So we already know how to do this. We got to get everything on the same side. So we're going to move that 4x over by subtracting it. Get 15x squared minus 4x is equal to 3. Then move the 3 over by subtracting it. We have 15x squared minus 4x minus 3 is equal to 0. So from here, can we factor out a greatest common factor? No. So multiply the 15 times negative 3. That gives us negative 45. What are the factors of negative 45? That add up to be a negative 4, 5, and negative 9. So this is going to factor out to be 15x squared plus 5x minus 9x minus 3 is equal to 0. We have 4 terms now, so factor by grouping. The 15x squared plus 5x, we're going to factor out a 5x. The negative 9x minus 3, we're going to factor out a negative 3. So we're going to have 5x times 3x plus 1 minus 3 times 3x plus 1 is equal to 0. Our two parentheses are the same here, so this is going to give us 5x minus 3, and 3x plus 1 is equal to 0. And now from here, we set each set of parentheses equal to 0, so 5x minus 3 is equal to 0, and 3x plus 1 is equal to 0. From here, solve for x for both. Add the 3 over, divide by 5. We get that x is equal to 3/5 for this one. For the other, we would subtract the 1, divide by 3. We get that x is negative 1/3. If we look at B, we have x over 2 minus 1 is equal to 5 over 6. So our least common denominator for this one is 6. Least common denominator is 6. So we're going to multiply the entire thing by 6. So we're going to have 6 over 1 times x over 2 plus 6 over 1 times negative 1 over 1 is equal to 6 over 1 times 5 over 6. All right, so the 2 is going to turn into a 1. The 6 will turn into a 3. 3 times x is 3x. The 6 times negative 1 is negative 6. And then the 6's cancel out with the other, so we just equal to 5. From here, we're going to move that 6 over by adding it to both sides. We get 3x is equal to 11. Then we divide by 3. We get that x is 11 over 3. For C, we have y over 6 plus 2 is equal to 2 over 3. So least common denominator is 6. Multiply the entire thing by 6. So 6 over 1 times y over 6 plus 6 times 2 is equal to 6 over 1 times 2 over 3. So the 6's will cancel. We're going to have y plus 6 times 2 is 12 is equal to, the 3 will turn into a 1, 6 will turn into a 2, so 2 times 2 is 4. We move that 12 over by subtracting it. We get y is equal to negative 8. For D, we have t over 3 plus 5/6 is equal to 3 over 2. So again, our least common denominator here, once more, is 6. So we'll multiply the entire thing by 6. We're going to have 6 over 1 times t over 3 plus 6 over 1 times 5 over 6 is equal to 6 over 1 times 3 over 2. The 6 will turn into a 2, making the 3 a 1, so 2 times t is 2t. 6's cancel out, become 1's. We're just going to have plus 5 is equal to 6 and 2 will become 1 and 3, so 3 times 3 is 9. Move the 5 over by subtracting it. We get 2t is equal to 4. Divide by 2 on both sides. We have t is equal to 2. For our next one, we have an inequality. So we're doing the same exact thing. Remember, if you're multiplying or dividing by a negative with these inequalities, those inequality signs switch. So if we look here, we have x over 8 minus x minus 2 over 3. I'm just going to put parentheses around this x minus 2, so it makes it my life a little bit easier, is greater than or equal to x plus 1 over 6 minus 1. So our least common denominator here is 24. So we're going to multiply everything by 24. So we're going to have 24 over 1 times x over 8 plus 24 over 1 times a negative x minus 2 over 3. If we want to keep that negative with the 24, we can do that as well. We're just going to take this out from here, make this a negative, and then we'll be fine. Keep the sign. We have a 24 over 1 times x plus 1 over 6. And then a 24, we're going to keep that negative, 24 over 1 times 1 over 1. So I'm taking this sign that's in front of the term and attaching it to the 24, so I remember to multiply by that negative. All right, so the 24 and the 8 will turn into a 1, making the 24 3. So 3 times x is 3x. The 3 is going to turn into a 1, the 24 will turn into an 8, so negative 8 times x minus 2. Put your sign down. We have a 6 and a 24, so the 6 will turn into a 1, the 24 will turn into a 4. So that's going to be 4 times x plus 1. And then we have a negative 24 times 1, which is negative 24. All right, so from here we are going to distribute that negative 8 in and the 4 into those parentheses. So we're going to have 3x minus 8x plus 16 is greater than or equal to 4x plus 4 minus 24. So now combine your like terms on the same side of that inequality sign. The 3x minus 8x is going to be negative 5x plus 16 is greater than or equal to 4x plus 4 minus 24 is negative 20. I want a positive x, so I'm going to move that 5x over by adding it to both sides. And I'm going to have 16 is greater than or equal to 9x minus 20. I'm going to move the 20 over by adding it to both sides. So this is going to give me 36 is greater than or equal to 9x. Now I'm going to divide by 9 on both sides and get that. So we're going to be left with 4 is greater than or equal to x. So remember, we have to rewrite this to where we have x is less than or equal to 4. If you look at B, we have t over 3 minus 1/2 is greater than 1. So our least common denominator here is 6. We're going to multiply the entire thing by 6. So we're going to have 6 over 1 times t over 3 plus, or we can keep it negative, 6 over 1 times 1/2 is greater than 6 times 1. All right, so the 3 will turn into a 1, the 6 turns into a 2. So that's 2 times t, which is 2t, minus 6 turns into a 3, 2 turns into a 1, so that's negative 3, is greater than 6 times 1 is 6. We're going to move the 3 over by adding it to both sides. We get 2t is greater than 9. Then we divide by 2. And we can leave it as 9 over 2. So t is greater than 9 over 2. For our next one, we have x over 3 minus 2 over 5 is less than or equal to 2. So our least common denominator here is 15. Multiply the entire thing by 15, or 15 over 1. So 15 over 1 times x over 3 minus 15 over 1 times 2 over 5 is less than or equal to 15 times 2. So the 3 is going to turn into a 1, the 15 turns into a 5. 5 times x is 5x. The 5 turns into a 1, the 15, or the negative 15 turns into a negative 3. So negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. Less than or equal to 15 times 2 is 30. We're going to add that 6 to both sides. We have 5x is less than or equal to 36. We're going to divide by 5 on each side, and we get that x is less than or equal to 36 over 5. For D, we have 3x over 4 plus 1 is greater than x minus 1 over 2. So our least common denominator here is 4. We are going to have 4 over 1 times 3x over 4 plus 4 times 1 is greater than 4 over 1 times x minus 1 over 2. All right, so these 4s are going to be 1s. We're going to have 1 times 3x, which is 3x. 4 times 1 is 4. Is greater than the 2 will turn into a 1, making the 4 a 2. So 2 times x minus 1. We're going to distribute that 2 in to get 3x plus 4 is greater than 2x minus 2. I'm going to move the 2 over by subtracting it. So I'm going to have x plus 4 is greater than negative 2. I'm going to move the 4 over by subtracting it. And we get x is greater than negative 6. When we are working with decimals, we can get rid of them by multiplying the entire equation by the highest decimal place value raised to the power, or that 10 raised to that power. So if you look here, we have 2 decimal places for all of our decimals here that are outside of our parentheses. So we can do 10 to the second power and multiply the entire equation by that 10 to the second power. So this is going to give us 100 times 0.04x plus 100 times 0.12 times 800 minus x is equal to 100 times 0.07 times 800. So if we go to multiply these numbers by that 100, it's going to leave us with 4x plus 12 times 800 minus x is equal to 7 times 800. So then we can multiply the 12 times 800 times negative x and the 7 times 800 to give us 4x plus 9600 minus 12x is equal to 5600. Oops. So from here, I'm going to combine the 4x minus 12x, give me negative 8x, plus 9,600 is equal to 5,600. I am going to move over that 9,600 by subtracting it from each side. And I get negative 8x is equal to negative 4,000. I'm going to divide each side by negative 8. It makes that negative 4,000 positive, and x is equal to 500. If we look at example B, we have 2.7 plus 0.5s is equal to 1.2. So we're going to multiply everything by 10 because we only have one decimal place here. So 10 times 2.7 plus 10 times 0.5s is equal to 10 times 1.2. So we're going to have 27 plus 5s is equal to 12. We are going to move the 27 over by subtracting it, and we get 5s is equal to negative 15. Then we divide each side by 5 and get that s is equal to negative 3. For our next one, we have 0.14x minus 0.06 is equal to 0.15. So we're going to multiply this entire thing by 10 to the second power because we have two decimal places here. So this is going to be 100 times 0.14x plus 100 times negative 0.06 is equal to 100 times 0.15. So this is going to give us 14x minus 6 is equal to 15. Yes. So we're going to move the 6 over by adding it to both sides. We get 14x is equal to 21. Then we're going to divide each side by 14, and we get that x is equal to 3 over 2. And lastly, with D, we have u is equal to 0.4 minus 0.5u. So we're going to multiply the entire thing by 10. We have one decimal place with these. So 10 times u is equal to 10 times 0.4 plus 10 times negative 0.5u. So this is going to give us 10u is equal to 4 plus, negative minus 5u. So we're going to move the 5u over by adding it to both sides. We have 15u is equal to 4. Then we divide each side by 15 and get u is equal to 4 over 15.